Call the meeting for December 16th, a special school board meeting to order. And is there a motion to approve our agenda?
I'll approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve our agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have our agenda. And the first item is to go into a closed session. So I move that we go into a closed session at 6:38.
I'll second that.
There's a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are going to a closed session and we will return to the Zoom after we come back. Okay, the time is 6:55 p.m. on the 16th of December 2020, and I'll call the school board meeting in open session back into order. And all those, is there a second to call it back into order?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor of coming back into the open meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are opened again. This morning, the Fairfax EVA had a meeting and they gave up their first right of refusal to the Fairfax building. And I move that we accept their paperwork on eliminating the first right of refusal.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Discussion. Hearing none. I think we need to do a roll call vote, correct, on all these tonight? So, Julie, if you want to go ahead.
Yes.
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 Okay, it's been approved. Our next order of business is our resolution for declaring the official intent of the district to diffuse a portion of a certain outstanding tax-exempt obligations in the event of subsequent deliberate action, authorizing the disbursement of such obligations and the execution and delivery of an escrow agreement and approving certain other actions with respect thereto. I will read this resolution and then we can take action if you so choose afterwards. Whereas Independent School District number 2365, Gibbon, Fairfax, Winthrop Public Schools, Sibley, McLeod, Nicollet, and Renville Counties, Minnesota, and the district previously issued its general obligation school building refunding bonds, Series 2015A, in the aggregate principal amount of $2,095,000. The proceeds of which refunded the district's general obligation school building bond, Series 2008A, in the aggregate principal amount of $4,035,000, the Series 28A bonds. And whereas the Series 28A bonds finance the acquisition and betterment of school facilities, including replacing the boilers at each of the district's elementary school, middle school, the Fairfax facility, and the high school with energy efficient heating systems, replacing the old high school locker rooms and updating the high school auditorium/theater. And whereas 18.35% of the proceeds of the Series 2008A bonds were spent on boiler improvements at the Fairfax facility. And whereas the prior bonds are not subject to prior optional redemption and repayment or prepayment and mature on the dates and with the principal amounts as follows. February 1st, 2021 in the amount of $305,000. February 1st, 2022 in the amount of $310,000. And February 1st, 2023 in the principal amount of $310,000. And whereas the district anticipates that within the next 60 days, it may enter into a purchase agreement that is not subject to any material contingencies. the purchase agreement with an unrelated third-party buyer, a non-governmental person, the buyer, setting forth the terms of the sale of the Fairfax facility for the cash sum of $53,000, which amount represents the fair market value of the Fairfax facility. And whereas the sale of Fairfax facility would constitute deliberate action by the district under Section 141 of the Internal Revenue Code 1986, as amended, and Treasury Regulation Section 1.141-2D, that causes the district's prior bonds to become private activity bonds. And whereas an issuer of tax-exempt bonds that takes a deliberate action causing such bonds to become private activity bonds may take a remedial action described in Treasury Regulation Section 141.141-12 to resolve the deliberate action and preserve the tax-exempt status of the bonds, including the defeasance of all non-qualified bonds and the establishment of the irrevocable escrow within 90 days of the date of the deliberate action to redeem the bonds at their earliest call date. And whereas Treasury Regulations Section 1.141-12D2 provides that if the consideration for the disposition of the bond finance property is exclusively cash, and the requirements of the defeasance of all non-qualified bonds will be met if the user uses all such disposition proceeds to redeem a pro rata portion of the non-qualified bonds at the earliest call date after the deliberate action, or establish a defeasance escrow of those bonds within 90 days of the deliberate action. And whereas Treasury Regulation Section 1.141-12D3 provides that an issuer may satisfy the requirements for defeasance of non-qualified bonds within 90 days of the deliberate action, if the issuer declares its official intent to redeem or defease all the bonds that would become non-qualified in the event of subsequent deliberate action that would cause the bonds to become private activity bonds, and the issuer redeems or defeases such bonds prior to the deliberate action. And whereas the district has determined to make this declaration of official intent to defease all of the prior bonds that would become non-qualified in the event of subsequent deliberate action that would cause the prior bonds to become private activity bonds, in accordance with the Treasury Regulation Section 1.141-12D, and to establish a defeasance escrow as defined by the Treasury Regulation Section 1.141-12D6 to redeem the non-qualified bonds at their earliest call date. And whereas the district has further determined to authorize the execution of the escrow agreement and all other documents and the instruments related thereto as a school board of the district, and the municipal advisor, PMA, determine are necessary or appropriate in connection with such defeasance. Now therefore be it resolved by the school board of Independent School District number 2365, Gibbon, Fairfax, Winthrop Schools, Sibley, McLeod, Nicollet, and Renville Counties, Minnesota, that Section 1, Declaration of Official Intent. The district declares its official intent pursuant to Treasury Regulation Section 1.141-12D to defease the non-qualified bonds by establishing a defeasance escrow within 90 days of the execution of the purchase agreement and depositing therein the proceeds to be received by the district from the sale of the Fairfax facility. Section 2, defeasance of the non-qualified bonds. The district hereby authorizes the defeasance of the non-qualified bonds in accordance with the following procedures and plan. Hereto the defeasance plan. A, the district hereby authorizes and directs that the non-qualified bonds be defeased by the establishment of the defeasance account escrow out of the disposition proceeds received by the district from the sale of the Fairfax facility, the terms of which defeasance escrow shall be finally determined, specified, approved, and determined by the chair and superintendent of the district, the authorized officers, and each of such authorized officers shall be and hereby is authorized to make the final determination of which of the terms of the and matter of defeasance and the terms of the escrow agreement as hereinafter described, and purchased of the escrow securities to fund the escrow for accomplishing the defeasance, and the final maturities and portions therefore or thereof of the percentage of the non-qualified bonds to be defeased. The portions of the non-qualified bonds selected for defeasance shall be determined by any authorized officer in accordance with the requirements of Treasury Regulation Section 1.141-12J2. B, defeasance escrow shall be established within 90 days of execution of the purchase agreement in accordance with the Treasury Regulation Section 1.141-12D. C, the non-qualified bond shall be paid from the defeasance escrow on their respective maturity dates, which dates the district hereby finds are the first date each of such obligations may be called, and written notice of defeasance shall be given in such forms as approved by any authorized officer. D, the cash sum received by the district from the sale of Fairfax facility shall be deposited in the defeasance escrow with Bond Trust Services Corporation, Roseville, Minnesota, the initial register and paying agent with respect to the prior bonds, or other suitable financial institutions in the state of Minnesota whose deposits are insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and combined capital and surplus is not less than $500,000. The escrow agent. The district shall enter into the escrow agreement with the escrow agent, the escrow agreement, setting forth the terms necessary to carry out the defeasance plan set forth herein, and as the school board of the district may determine in consultation with the bond counsel and municipal advisor. The authority to approve, execute, and deliver the escrow agreement, any other documents to be executed and delivered by the district in connection with the defeasance of the non-qualified bonds is hereby delegated to the authorized officers and such other officials, subject to the following conditions. I, the escrow agreement and such other documents do not materially adversely affect the interest of the district. 2I, the escrow agreement or such other documents do not contravene or violate any policy of the district. And 3I, the escrow agreement or such other documents are acceptable in the form and substance to bond counsel. The authorization hereby given shall be further construed as authorization for the execution and delivery of such certificates and related items as may be required to demonstrate compliance with the escrow agreement or such other aforementioned documents and terms of this resolution. The execution of any instrument by the authorized officer shall be conclusive evidence of the approval of such instruments in accordance with terms hereof. D, written notice of the defeasance shall be given to the Commissioner of Internal Revenue Services within 90 days from the date of the defeasance escrow is established in accordance with the Treasury Regulation Section 1.141-12D4. E, in the event of the deposition proceeds received by the district from the sale of the Fairfax facility are not sufficient to fully fund the escrow requirements to defease all of the non-qualified bonds, the district will nonetheless be deemed to meet the requirements for the defeasance remedial actions so long as the disposition proceeds are exclusively cash and the district uses all of such disposition proceeds to establish a defeasance escrow for pro rata portion of the non-qualified bonds within 90 days of the deliberate action, as provided in the Treasury Regulation Section 1.141-12D2. In the event the disposition proceeds received by the district from the sale of Fairfax facility exceed the amount necessary to fulfill the fund defeasance escrow or the defeasance of the non-qualified bonds, then the remaining disposition funds shall be expended by the district within 2 years for other governmental purposes of the district and in a manner that does not cause prior bonds to become private activity bonds, in accordance with the remedial action provisions under Treasury Regulation 1.141-12E. F, The engagement of bond counsel, the municipal advisor, any verification agent, and the escrow agent to assist and serve the district in carrying out the defeasance plan is hereby approved, ratified, and authorized, and the payment of the payment of the reasonable fees and costs of such providers is hereby approved and authorized. Section 3, paying agent instructions. To provide for the discharge and the defeasance of the non-qualified bonds and all liens securing same, the district hereby approves and authorizes any of the authorized officers to prepare and send written instructions to the paying agent for the prior bonds, the paying agent, in such form and content as approved by any such authorized officer or any other officer or official representative of the district, as any of them may determine to be necessary or appropriate. Section 4, further action. Each of the chair, the district auditor, the district clerk, the district treasurer, or any other officer or official representative of the district acting alone and without the necessary of the joinder of other authorized district officials hereby authorized and directed to take all action as may be necessary or appropriate to officiate this resolution and the defeasance of the non-qualified bonds, including but not limited to making all arrangements necessary or appropriate with the paying agent for the defeasance of the non-qualified bonds, making such deposit to the defeasance escrow as may be necessary for the defeasance of the non-qualified bonds, approving the final terms and execution of the escrow agreement with the escrow agent, authorizing the investment of the funds held in defeasance escrow under the escrow agreement in accordance with the terms of this resolution, approving and authorizing the payment of the cost incurred in connection with the defeasance of the non-qualified bonds, including the fees and costs of the bond counsel, the municipal advisor, the verification agent, and the fees and expenses of the paying agent and the escrow agent, and all related costs, and taking all other actions that are reasonably necessary and appropriate to provide for the defeasance of the non-qualified bonds. Okay, did everybody catch that?
Amen.
I move that we accept this resolution as just stated by myself.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's motion and the second's been made. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call a roll call vote. Julie?
Yes.
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 Approved. Okay. Our next item will be, we have a resolution for approving the sale of the former GFW Intermediate School located at 300 3rd Avenue Southeast, Fairfax, Minnesota to Retro Companies Incorporated. Now I'll read this resolution, unless somebody would like to volunteer. Hearing no volunteers. Whereas Independent School District number 2365, Gibbon, Fairfax, Winthrop Public Schools, the district is owner of former GFW Intermediate School located at 300 3rd Avenue Southeast in Fairfax, Minnesota. Legally described on the attachment A, the property, and whereas Retro Companies Incorporated, a Minnesota corporation, the buyer, has offered to purchase the property from the district, and whereas the board hereby approves the sale of the property to the buyer and also hereby approves the purchase agreement between the district and the buyer, under which, among other things, the district will convey the property to the buyer, the purchase agreement being attached as Exhibit B, and the purchase agreement. And now therefore be it resolved by the School District of Independent School District number 2365, Gibbon, Fairfax, Winthrop Schools, Sibley, McLeod, Nicollet, Renville Counties, Minnesota, that 1, the recitals set forth herein are incorporated into and made part hereof. 2, the purchase agreement is hereby approved and the superintendent and board chair are authorized to execute it on the district's behalf. 3, the superintendent and the board chair are hereby authorized and directed to execute all appropriate documents, including but not limited to a quitclaim deed, to officiate the conveyance of the property to the buyer, provided, however, that the district and the buyer have met all conditions for conveyance in the purchase agreement. 4, the superintendent and board chair, staff, and consultants are hereby authorized and directed to take any and all additional steps and actions necessary to or convenient in order to accomplish the intent hereof. Approved by the School Board of Independent School District number 2365, Gibbon, Fairfax, Winthrop Schools, Sibley, McLeod, Nicollet, Renville Counties, Minnesota, the 16th day of December, 2020. Okay, I move that we accept this resolution for the sale of the Fairfax building.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve this resolution for the sale of the Fairfax property. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, I will call a roll call vote. Julie?
Yes.
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 All right, it's approved. And I believe at this point, Jeff, you have some a presentation to explain some of this a little more in detail.
I do, thank you, and great job. I think it was only about 20 minutes only. Nice job. Yes, I do want to go through a brief presentation for our community on the details of the purchase agreement and the details of the lease to better to help them understand what has transpired here tonight. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, everybody see my PowerPoint okay? Up and up there for you? Okay, great. So first of all, just a huge thank you to our community, to our stakeholders, to our board, for all of your work to help us get to this point. It has been a long journey, and this really has been a collaborative effort to move what we feel is a positive outcome for the school district, a positive outcome for the Fairfax community, given the situation we were in. I want to go back to a 100-day plan where we wanted to emphasize listening. I went on a listening tour and listened to people where they were, and that feedback made its way into this process and into the purchase agreement. And thank you for people being willing to share with me. Thank you for board members for being open with me and sharing your perspective and your wisdom and guidance. Thank you to the staff and the many other people that were a part of this process. First, I just want to touch on some of the school and community benefits that are come from this purchase agreement. For the school district specifically, the school district will be able to access the gym that was in Fairfax. In fact, actually, there's 2 gyms over there that we will have access to. There's going to be some upgrades done into that area, as well as the locker room area and bleachers. These were part of the facility review back in the 100-day plan, where I did a review of the facilities to better understand what was going on. The board chose to slow down the purchase of the property to help me as a new superintendent understand what was going on in that area. And because of that time, we were able to put together a solid purchase agreement. We will have no maintenance costs going forward. So not only will we get access to that space, we will not have maintenance costs, repair costs, utility, heat costs. We will not have those. Our school district will be present in the Fairfax community. That was something that I heard that was very important, that we want the school district to be present, and this will maintain a presence in that area. Drop off and pick up. If you've been to any school district anywhere, this is probably one of the most exciting times during the day, is drop off and pick up. We will continue to be able to utilize the drop off and pick up area there at that site. For the community, there will be an opportunity to have a new recreation center. While the school district is not using the property for that gym, that will potentially be available to community members. Potentially, there could be future adult leagues, student leagues. That facility could be rented out for families. And as I met with community members, this was something as a piece of pride for them to have that gym. They were also looking at that as an important piece. Okay, I'm going to pause just for 1 second here to adjust the audio.
Continuing on with the recreation center, we're also going to keep a piece of the community's history. The school district, the school is something that's very important to the Fairfax community, and we will be able to preserve that area of that. Property values. An empty school building is not good for property values. And we are going to make sure that this is utilized. We have a buyer who is going to be doing some great things with the property, and that's going to be great for the community, and it's going to help home values. Again, for the community, it's great to have that school building present there where we have a connection. Events. When we have events over there, that's one thing I heard from business owners is we want people coming to town. We want people to come to Fairfax and see how great the community is. We want people to stop in and grab a donut or grab some lunch or dinner. This will provide those opportunities. I want to talk about stakeholder feedback for a minute and discuss who the different groups are that we worked with. Throughout the process, we gathered feedback from lots of different groups. Starting with Renville County, I had an opportunity to speak with the commissioner as well as the Renville County EDA. They shared information on the need for mental health. They shared information on the need for housing. They shared information on other areas that had done rec center ideas, and that helped us get some ideas as to how this project may come together. The Mayor of Fairfax and City Administrator have been very helpful in providing information and being collaborative in the process, and a huge thank you to the City Administrator and Mayor for that process. Huge thanks to the EDA. We had a chance to have multiple meetings together to talk about ideas, and thank you to them for their help in the process. We also connect with faith-based leaders, business owners, parents and community members, students, Latinx community members, school board members, staff, other local schools, and local public health to determine, is this purchase agreement going to help meet the needs of our community? Some of the details within the purchase agreement. The concept right now would be walling off the wing of the building that has the gymnasium. So there would be a separate entrance for the portion we use versus the other part of the building that the buyers will be using. In this new area, they'll be creating a new concession stand area with a sink. This will allow us to have a concession stands when we have events. There will be a multi-purpose room that the district will have access to. In this multi-purpose room, we could do multiple things with that. If there's an event going on, this could be used for a place for families to gather after an event or for students. The bleachers were an area that needed to be replaced. We found that in the facility study. There will be new bleachers put in both sides of the area. The locker rooms were not up to code and prevented us from hosting events. They will be putting in showers, refreshing those locker rooms and bringing them up to code. There will be a bike rack. When students need to come over there, they'll have a place to put their bikes. The sale price, as mentioned earlier, is going to be $53,000. But in addition to that sale price, there is an estimated repair cost of $500,000 or more that will be invested into this building by the buyer. It will not be able to be a school at any time in the future, even in future transactions. And the closing date will be on or before February 1st. The lease agreement. So we no longer own the building, but we are leasing the areas. We're leasing the gym area, we're leasing the concession stand area, the multi-purpose room area, the locker room areas, and that lease is for up to 99 years, and the cost is $1 per year. So we do have a small cost, $1 per year. We will have priority access to the facility and scheduling. As I mentioned earlier, we can utilize this as a drop-off and pickup area, and in the event of an emergency, we can use that area as a shelter. It'll be available for immediate use. Activity Director Bussey is already scheduling events over there, and I've seen that schedule. So upon opening practices on January 4th, which was just announced, we will be able to utilize that facility. The updates to the locker rooms, the bleachers, the concession stands, and the multi-purpose room will be completed by August 1st, 2022. School district efficiencies. By going through this process, the school district has realized numerous efficiencies. Number one, the R.A. Morton study had us at $11.4 million for repairs that needed to happen. We no longer have that cost. If the building had stayed empty and unoccupied, we would still have an annual cost of about $108,000. As of February 1st or before, when we close on the property, we'll have only the $1 per year cost. In terms of staffing, it is much more challenging to staff across 3 sites than it is 2. I always use the lunch example because if I have to prepare lunch at 3 different sites, that's going to be more staff. We can be more efficient with our staff by having the reduced spaces. When we looked at the facility study, we had over double the amount of space as an average school district with 3 buildings. Having reduced down to 2, we are still above the state average. So we still have space, which is why we've been able to social distance and keep in-person learning going as we have in our district. Currently, we will have 2 gyms to utilize, the big gym and then the one in the auditorium. At some point, the auditorium gym may become something else, but until that time, we have access to that gym as well. So just a quick summary and review. Listening and collaboration was key throughout this process. Listening to people, listening to the community, listening to everybody involved, and collaborating on finding out how we could best support the community of Fairfax and the school district moving forward. I think today we had a lot of wins with this purchase agreement and lease agreement. We are bringing financial stability to the school district. We identified a community need. We found a buyer who is going to meet that community need. The housing study and the need for mental health are real, and that is what they're going to be focused on. We are present in the community of Fairfax, which is really important. We are there to support the Fairfax community, and this property will support them with jobs, housing. It'll support the greater area with mental health needs, and as we talked about, that rec center. That is an important piece, and I think that can be utilized in a lot of different ways with the community. So I just want to close with saying thank you. Thank you to the school board. Thank you to the community. Thank you to all of our stakeholders for all of your efforts in this process. It has been a hard one, but I think that our end outcome has been very positive, and I think there are a lot of wins for the community, for the school district, and I think this is something that we can feel really good about moving forward. So thank you, everybody, and thank you to the school board.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. And that ends our business here for our special school board meeting here tonight. I move that we adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and second to adjourn our meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I hear a majority. We are adjourned.